Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode. Now, today, I'm going to be discussing the future of a well-known NBA star by the name of James "Honeybun" Harden. Now, after suffering one of the most humiliating and embarrassing losses of his career at the hands of Jason "No Points in the Fourth Quarter" Tatum, he's got himself in a little bit of a situation. There's some talk of him, or let's just say that there's very minimal belief that he'll return to Philadelphia, which I'll get into why I don't think that's a good idea later on in this episode. But I'll talk about first the teams that he's been linked to so far. Now, the first report was that he's heavily linked to making a reunion with the Houston Rockets. And the Houston Rockets, they didn't make the playoffs. They're a high seed or low seed team, not very good. But you know what? They got a young squad. And I think if Harden went back there, that would draw some guys, some bigger name free agents over there to pair up with Harden and this young talent like Jalen Green and such. The people were talking about if Harden goes over there, maybe Jaylen Brown goes over there, and that'd be a pretty good squad. I'd like to see how they would fare. I don't think it's good enough to win everything, but I think that's a good stepping stone, especially to develop some of these younger guys. So that's really what's been the biggest rumor so far, and what everyone's kind of thinking. Now, another team, which would be scary for a lot of the NBA. There's been a rumor that a third team in the mix, Harden can go and form the Avengers with the Phoenix Suns, teaming up with KD and Book, and that would be a pretty scary team. Now, coming from a Suns fan, I mean, that sounds nice and all. You got Harden, one of the best players in the NBA, Booker, who's after this playoff run, even though we got bounced out in a pretty bad way, I don't think Booker gets enough respect, because after this playoff run, he's really kind of solidified himself as a top shooting guard in the league, if not the best. I don't even think he's top 5. I think he might be top 3, and he might be 1. So, his performance was amazing. It was record-breaking. He really put his team on his back, and it was something to see. And understandably, that's going to draw a lot of people to Phoenix. People are going to be wanting to come to Phoenix after something like that. So, you got Booker, who looks like he can be reaching his prime. And not to say that he hasn't played good. This guy's been elite. He has been easily a top 5 shooting guard in the league, and we're starting to see him enter his prime now. And his prime is the best guard in the league. And that's going to draw a lot of people over. He's young. He's super, super gifted and talented. And then you got Kevin Durant. Now, I know Kevin Durant didn't play like the Kevin Durant we all know, but it's still Kevin Durant. It's still KD. So, a lot of people are saying, well, he's washed. He's past his prime. He's past his prime, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be good anymore. And we're currently looking for a head coach. And if we bring in Ty Lue, that's also going to be something that teams are interested, because I think a lot of our players would be interested in, because a lot of players would like playing under Ty Lue. He's a great, experienced coach, and that's something that would draw a lot of players over to Phoenix. But it looks good on paper. The big three, James Harden, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. Well, like I said, coming from a Suns fan, I don't think it would work, and I would oppose it. And the reason I say this is not all teams with a bunch of talent fare in the NBA. We saw this with Brooklyn, who had James Harden, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. How many rings did they win? 0. 0 wins. So, not all teams with a bunch of talent are destined for greatness. I think what makes a true NBA team, or a true championship winning team, it's the right talent all mixing together. You got to have the right people, and they got to mix together well. That's why the Suns couldn't do anything with Booker and KD. Although I think Booker and KD mix well and pair well, the bench did not pair well with KD. The team was not set. The team was not built around that duo. And I think that's what the Suns are going to change this offseason. They're going to build around that duo. So if you put Harden on this team, you got to realize what the type of player Harden is. He'd probably be running point. And our point guard now is Chris Paul. Okay, Chris Paul, even in his prime, in his days with LA, he's going to be putting up points, but he's also going to be commanding the floor. He's going to be a floor general. He's going to distribute the ball. He's going to make sure the ball is distributed. James Harden's not going to want to do that. James Harden's going to want to stat pad. He's going to want to put up as much points as he can. And I'm not saying that as a put down or an insult or saying, this and that, but that's the type of player he is. James Harden needs and wants the ball in his hand. Well, so do Booker and KD. Now, when you got a duo like that, it's a little easier to distribute that ball and share that ball. I think if you add a third primary scorer in there, it won't look good. It won't look good. And we're just going to be another super team who fails. And I don't want that for the Phoenix Suns. If the Phoenix Suns truly want to win, we need to build around KD and Book and get the right squad. And James Harden will not mix well. That's just my opinion. I mean, I'm not looking at what everyone else and all these GMs and coaches are looking at. I mean, they could be seeing something and saying this team will do well. But my opinion, I think it, like I said, looks good on paper, but it probably wouldn't go well. Now, there is an option that he just stays in Philly. He doesn't have to leave. I mean, James Harden sacrificed a little to stay in Philly. He took a pay cut, and he was really serious about winning. Then all of a sudden, nobody shows up for that Game 7, and they get humiliated. And they didn't just lose. They were bounced out in the worst possible way. And people are saying that's reason enough for James Harden to leave. Now, it all depends on James Harden's his motives. Does he want to win a ring? Is he going to be a ring chaser? Does he want to chase the bag? Does he want to get a lot of money? And in that case, I think he could go to a team like Houston who'd be willing to pay, or another team who's not surrounded by a bunch of talent. But James Harden's playing with an MVP. He's got the best situation. He's playing with an MVP team, or a team who has an MVP. He's got good talent, and Tyrese Maxey, some other role players surrounded in there. I mean, I think got to get rid of guys like PJ Tucker. And let's talk about the Sixers firing Doc Rivers. Not only do I think was that a good idea, but there was some pressure by the players to fire Doc Rivers. And one of those players was James Harden. And it didn't look like if Rivers stayed around, Harden would. He wouldn't. He wasn't going to stick around and play another year under Doc Rivers. So with Rivers gone, I think it's a little bit more likely that Harden will stay. And and again, it all really depends on his motives, because I think, to me, he wants to win a ring. But if he goes over to Houston, he's not winning a ring there. He's not going to go win a ring in Houston. I mean, he could go win a ring with Phoenix. But like I said, that could be a... I can't think of an analogy for it, but I know there's a good one out there. You know, it'll crumble. That it'll be a big, great team, and a crumble just like the Brooklyn Nets did. But I already talked about that. But Harden is surrounded by some good players, not just good players. I mean, he's got an MVP. He's playing with an MVP. And Sixers are going to do whatever it takes to keep Harden on that team, because if Harden goes, that pretty much rules out the chances for Embiid to ever do anything in Philly. And, the rumors were already swirling once it sounded like Harden was, already shipped out of Philly, that Embiid doesn't want to stick around. So if you're Philly, you kind of got to think about it. Like, if you lose Harden, you're probably going to lose Embiid as well. And that's something they don't want to do. They don't want to lose their franchise player, MVP player. So, in my opinion, Harden just ought to stay put in Philly, see what he can do. Because, he's not protecting his legacy by just bouncing around team to team, and he's not going to win a ring. He's going to go to another team, and he's not going to win a ring. His best bet is to stay in Philadelphia. He needs to talk it out with the organization. He needs to say, look, if I'm going to stay, you got to get this and that. You need to surround me with these players and such. So that's all I really got to say. I mean, I've seen some other trade rumors, him sign and trade to another team. Like I saw the Knicks. That's just speculation. But I just addressed the most talked about teams, which is Philly, Phoenix, and Houston. And I gave my opinion on that, and that's all I really got to say. So thank you, and have a good rest of your day.